So at some point, Zoya, and welcome to the Green Coach, by the way. So at some point, Zoya, I worked in a school, né?
Mhm.
And each time the moms came to me in the school, would come and introduce themselves. They would say, "Hi, I am Nompumelele's mom."
Okay.
And I often used to wonder, but beyond being Nompumelele's mom,
Mm.
who are you? So I want to start by asking, who is Zoya?
That question is it's interesting because we ask this question in the many classrooms that we occupy.
Mm,
And when one throws it back at you, it's so difficult to respond to it. And yes,
mhm,
every day I'm sitting in classrooms asking others to respond to it. But I
mhm,
think I think it's important as a starting place. We're so accustomed to framing ourselves relative to the roles that we play, and particularly as women.
mm.
When I ask women the same question, they typically say, "Ndingumagabani, I'm the mother to this person, I'm the
Mrs.
wife to this person, etc. I'm the sister, etc." Because as women, we are almost taught to introduce ourselves relative to the roles we play.
And the
So thank you for
functions.
asking the
And the
question.
functions.
Well, the roles, the functions
Yeah.
interchangeably.
And the
So yes.
responsibilities you have.
Wait, I want to now get to, so who is Zoya?
Mm.
So I often, when I describe myself, say I'm fire. So I came dressed in this color appropriately.
Absolutely.
And I think what that means is that I am an energy being. When I step into a space, I'm conscious about the energy I bring into that space. I'm fire. I light things up. I'm very good at starting things. So, I'm somebody who's always ideating. I move in the world looking at what is the world presenting us with, and how can I, be somebody who responds to what the world presents us with. So I like to start things. I have
Mm,
energy to start things.
mm,
So the second, I think I would say, is I am kind. And when I talk about being kind, it's a particular brand of kindness. And maybe
mm.
let me just elaborate.
Yeah.
So typically, when somebody says I'm kind, it means I will take anything.
Yeah.
And I think when I talk about my brand of kindness, it's this
Mm,
wonderful balance between being able to be direct
yeah.
whilst also always preserving and acknowledging the human element. I have
Mm,
a heart for people.
mm.
Our work is with people.
We do.
We're in the business of developing people, of
Yeah.
assisting people to unlock
Yeah.
things for themselves. And I think one has to be mindful and sensitive.
Yeah.
Alongside that, you can't unlock things for people
Yeah.
if you're not willing to call out what you see.
Yeah.
How you do that, of course, matters, but we
Absolutely.
have to be direct.
Yeah.
So I think my brand of kindness then is the beautiful marriage of
Yeah.
those two things.
Yeah. So having worked with you, I can attest to the fact that there's a certain grace and courage that you have and that ability of calling out things. In the work that you and I do, we call
Mm.
it mirroring work, right?
Mm.
And you do it so effortlessly. And
Thank
I'm
you.
very curious of where does that come from?
Where does it come from?
And what could be the story around that?
I was raised by activists. So, and in fact, they weren't just activists. I want to find the correct terminology.
Mm.
I was raised by theologians,
Okay.
so people who were in the church, but who were also activists and revolutionaries.
Mm.
So think about that balance. And I'll make an example for
Very
you.
powerful.
It's very powerful. So I grew up in a home where ivestry asetaweni, the church vestry, was used to hide political activists.
Yeah.
So there's this constant interplay between the political and the religious. I grew up in a home where police were constantly coming into our home.
Mhm.
And I was watching my mother, my grandfather, my grandmother resist the system of old.
Mhm.
And so it was very interesting. I also watched our home become a refuge for many people in the community.
Mhm.
And so I suspect that the balance of, or that experience may have shaped some of what you then describe as the mirroring work we do for people. I grew up
Mm.
surrounded by people.
Mhm.
People who were destitute would come into our home. People who were not destitute, who
Mhm.
were revolutionaries who sat and had intellectual conversations around a table would come into our home.
Mhm.
People who just needed a space to breathe and to be would come into our home.
Mhm.
And I think that was one of the contributors that have shaped not just the work that I do, but the person I am and continue to become.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, of course, I also had this very interesting Umakhulu wam was the queen's, I don't know what.
Yeah.
Think about that British sister.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
She was proper, she was graceful, she was upright, all of those things. Think about it. Inkosikazi kaMfundisi.
Yes.
The
Yeah,
wife
yeah.
to the
Correct.
Mfundisi. So she was tall and regal and a lady, all of those things.
Yeah.
Alongside that was my mother, who was the complete opposite. She was rebellious and couldn't be contained. She traveled the world.
Wow.
She was very worldly in her outlook.
Ahead of her time then, right?
Ahead of her time then, but also I didn't understand it. So I don't want to paint a picture of this appreciation for her.
Yeah.
I didn't understand this woman who was totally nonconformist,
Yeah.
who would go into church with me and say things like, "Hayi wena hlala nomakhulu akho phaa phambili," and then she'd buy Beaches bubblegum and chew bubblegum in church. And it sounds like such a small thing.
No.
But she completely was just anti-system, constantly doing things that others might typically look at and frown upon. And so I've got these two figures who are central to my life, my mother and my grandmother, and I suspect that watching them and being brought up by them contributed to I've become. So maybe that's the long answer to your question.
Yeah. And I'm seeing two golden threads coming up here. The power of politics, right? And also not only politics, but if you look at the interplay between even religion at the time, right? Where there was so much politics at the time and religion at the time had really an outcome and a focus on social justice.
100%. You know that I wear a social justice cap.
Yeah, talk to us a little bit about that.
I mean, it overlays everything I do. Somebody once came to me as I was doing our work, I was facilitating a session, and they said, "I don't know what it is, but I can see the activist in you when you do your work." I really am hardwired for social justice. I care for systems that make sense, that are inclusive. I care for a world that looks just, whether this is a world that looks just in relation to how we protect our children.
Yeah.
I care for a world that is clean. Social justice for me even relates to how we treat the planet and how we
Absolutely.
think about our contribution as it relates to what we leave behind for those who are coming. So that's the broad lens when I think about social justice. And then of course there's the gender aspect and all of those. There's the racial aspect, etc.
Yeah.
But I am somebody who was ndayincanca ebeleni. We said that in isiXhosa. Ndayincanca ebeleni mna into social justice. You know how you have these activists who are cropping up left, right, and center,
Yeah.
and everybody's attaching a name to it.
Yeah.
I struggle with that a little bit because I don't know the fancy terminologies for half of the things out there, but I do know that at the core of who I am, I walk the world trying to make it a better place across different others. Whether this is gender, whether this is race, whether this is a skill set, whether this is, so that's all I can say there.
Yeah. And it's not just social justice for the sake of social justice. What I'm hearing you say now is around the common good.
Yes, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I cannot say I'm fully liberated when you're not fully liberated. There is no way either as men or even as Black people or whatever category that we belong to, either as marginalized or people who are on the receiving end or benefits of any system, can we say we're truly liberated when others are not enjoying the liberation. And so I think that's a beautiful thread that's coming out from your upbringing and from your roots, which is social justice, but not social justice for the sake because it's the woke thing to do.
That word.
Yeah. Or it's the thing that is trending, but it's because
100%.
it's the common good that is at stake.
I like that.
Introduce.
Like
That's
the way you
commendable.
put it.
Yeah, that's commendable actually.
As you were speaking, two stories come to mind. So I'm told that Sasese Airport, East London Airport, waiting for my mother to come back from wherever she traveled to, and I was about 3 or 4, and some white person came towards us, and apparently I walked up to them and I said, "Hey, wena, Zakwela Mandela." So there's always been that consciousness, I think, that runs within. That's been embedded into, I think, the fiber of who I am.
Yeah.
And so I like this idea of somebody who walks the world really going, what does it look like to make the world a better place? I'm also told that when I was in grade 4, the equivalent of what we then used to call Tinastana 2,
Yeah.
somebody asked me, what do you want to do? And I responded, I want to be a missionary who travels the world, connecting with people and doing good work. And so there's an intersection there again. This kind of Mandela figure who represented somebody who was going to change the world for the better, revolutionary, who would fight and do what needed to be done in order for that outcome to be achieved. But also this reverence for people.
Yeah.
I want to be a missionary traveling the world, being of service.
Yeah. And you are still a missionary right now. You might not be a missionary in the traditional church. You are a missionary in corporate South Africa. You're a missionary in the business schools that you've partnered with.
We're commercial missionaries.
Yes, but
Yes.
your work that you do, in as much as you get paid for it, it's a work that not so many people are doing. Just talk a little bit to the work that you're doing in corporate South Africa at the moment.
Am I allowed to tell the back end story as we lead into the work, or
We-
must I get straight into the work?
Let's tell the back end story of the work. Yeah.
So when I step up to deliver the work, and I have to do the work of telling people who I am, I always say to them, I describe myself as a corporate dropout.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the story actually begins, around the work I find myself doing. So I dropped out of corporate after spending 10 years trying to climb that ladder, and I failed dismally. Now, this was not expected of someone like me who typically presents as confident, all of those wonderful things. And so when I drop out of corporate, I'm in a very bad place.
Okay.
I don't look after myself well. I was drinking 2 bottles of wine a day.
Yeah.
So the corporate world really got to me. And I remember dropping out after there'd been an event at work where I was part of the organizing committee. Some London rowers, or a South African team of rowers who'd gone to the London Olympics, were at this event. So we're all sitting in the atrium of the organization, and my big boss turns to me and says, Zoya, what do you think? Can I ask you to come up onto the platform to share your thoughts? I freeze. I can't think. I'm stressed. And I effectively lose the opportunity. I lose the moment. I don't make the most of that moment. And it becomes a catalyst for me to have to hold that mirror up and go, what happened? How did you move from being somebody who was so confident, somebody who could communicate with clarity, man? You know, your thoughts, voice your opinion, contribute meaningfully. How did I shift from being that person when I first entered the world of work to being somebody who would be so scared to even raise her hand to contribute, who would doubt the value of her contributions, who felt like I had this thing speaking in my ear saying, like, who do you think you are for contributing?
So you muted yourself.
Of course I muted myself. And so anyway, I drop out and I'm forced to then do the work of what happened? Like, what happened that caused you to become somebody you could barely recognize? And so I have a couple of months where I spend time just thinking through where to from here. I've got a little girl who was born a year before that. So I had no choice but to figure out what the next is. My husband is saying to me, hey, that did too. I hear this dropout thing of yours, but what's the plan? And so I have to figure out what my next will look like. And this is where things aren't fun. Kumnyama tsu. Must I translate that? It's dark.
It's dark.
Yes.
There's no light.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And so I think at that point, I'm sitting thinking, what do I do? What's my next, etc. And 2 things happen. The first is I enroll for a leadership development program called Turning Point. And Turning Point is leadership development on steroids, because for the first time I have the opportunity to actually hold a mirror up and look truthfully at what am I being confronted with here. And we do an activity at Turning Point, and I know this is a long way to get to responding to your question, but I think it's important.
Yeah.
We do an activity at Turning Point where they say to us, we have to attach labels to ourselves. We have to wear these stickers.
Yeah.
Physically write out, take the sticker, attach it to yourself. And the stickers I had at that time were, I'm a wounded animal. I'm a shebeen queen. I'm going to cry. I'm a disgrace to Africa. That's hard for me. Whew. Don't worry, I'm okay. They flow, my friend. We'll figure out what we do with the makeup. So I've got these labels I've attached to myself. And it's hard, man. It's like, how did we get to this place? I love my continent. How am I disgrace to Africa? How am I this wounded animal? How am I a shebeen queen? Right? And I attach these labels, these things we attach to ourselves consciously and unconsciously. And that was a turning point for me. It was like, yo,
It was like now you see the mirror in front of
the
you.
mirror was there.
And
I bet.
and what you're seeing is the things that you like or you don't like.
It's things I'd attached to myself, Brian, because here I am trying to climb this corporate ladder and it's hard, man. I'm struggling. And I can't find a reason why. You understand? I can't find a reason why I'm struggling to climb this thing. I'm hell of a competent.
Yeah.
A superstar in her own right.
Yeah.
You know? And so this doesn't make sense to me. And perhaps I hadn't learned the language of corporate at the time.
Yeah.
But in the interim, when you get people constantly rejecting your contributions,
Mm.
when you navigate a world that says something must be wrong with you because why aren't you like those people?
The messaging.
And so that messaging sits, it sticks.
And you actually had
And then
believed
I take it.
Yeah.
I take it and I go, it must mean something is wrong with me. Do you
And
understand?
it's true. And it must also mean that it is true about
course,
me.
Of course. And every time you have an experience that is painful,
Yeah.
you reinforce. You stick the sticker on harder.
It confirms, double click.
Confirms. But actually, it's true.
Yeah.
And so I'm at this turning point, leadership development program, though they don't call it that.
Yeah.
I'm doing this work on myself.
Yeah.
I'm realizing that I have attached these labels to myself. And at some point, I have to then do the painful work of removing the labels. Think about a plaster that's been sitting on you for a long time.
Of course.
Now you must peel that plaster. That's so, hey? And so you've got these multiple plasters. And so turning point for me became like the peeling of all of these things that had become etched into my skin because they'd been sitting there for so long.
What made you then say, I need to peel these plasters off me? Because clearly that was a very defining moment in your life and in your career. But many of us have those defining moments, and we probably work up in a ditch somewhere, the car is broken, or bakubambe emjolweni, and you had said, no, I'm coming, I'm at a meeting, and the flight then doesn't go, and you find yourself in a very dark place, right? And you get out of it, and you still continue with the pattern. You did not choose to continue. You could have said, oh, yeah, and go back to your former ways of being and doing. What made you then make the decision to say, I need to start peeling off these plasters?
It goes back to that question you asked where you said, who are you? It was remembering that mina ndingumlilo otshisayo. It was that. It was going, I know that this is somebody I've become that has nothing to do with who I know Zoya to be. I just remembered. Turning point, I think, assisted me to remember. And I love it. If you think about the word remember, it's to become a member, right? And so I became a member of who this girlie is and what she's about. And that was the powerful thing. I remembered. And I said, if to remember is to tap into something that says, this is who you are, girlie, there's the moreness you know about yourself, then I want to live from that place. Not from the place of empty. Not from the place of constant self-doubt and questioning. Not from the place of needing to prove anything to anyone. The right, yes, actually, with this girl. And so when you tap into that, you tap into remembering something. I remembered who Zoya was, man. Didn't know how else to explain it. And because I'd been exposed to even an inkling of that, I was like, I'd rather chase that than this thing that requires me to be something other than that.
So you made a choice.
Of course.
And you made a decision.
Yes, sir.
But the decision was to go back and reconnect with who really am I. And luckily for you, you knew who you were.
Well, you know, these things can become philosophical. Ne? And then when they become philosophical, ingathi sithethe woo-woo. It's woo-woo.
No.
Remember who you are.
No, it's not.
So I'm going to use an analogy to assist us, and then we'll still go back to the question around the work that we're doing in corporate. I haven't forgotten that.
We'll come back,
so there is that beautiful movie called Black Panther.
Yeah.
Okay? The first fight scene of Black Panther has got T'Challa fighting with Mbaku.
Yeah.
Mbaku is from one of the tribes. He's
Mm.
big in stature.
Yeah.
Mbaku.
Mm.
T'Challa is living overseas when his father, T'Chaka, dies.
Yeah.
They say to him, hey, come back home because you are the rightful heir to the throne.
Mm.
So he comes back home. But in Wakanda, they say you don't just become the king by default. You have to prove to us that you are worthy of that throne.
Mm.
So you have to have a ritual combat with one of the people from the other tribes.
Yeah.
So we watch these two gentlemen fight. Now T'Challa's got a smaller frame.
Mm-hmm.
Mbaku's the bigger of the two.
Mm-hmm.
And so as you're watching this, you think the bigger of the two is going to win the fight.
Yeah.
And of course, all of the Wakanda tribes are gathered watching this thing.
Mm.
They fight and they tussle and they fight and they tussle. And at some point, it looks as though T'Challa's about to win. About to lose.
Yeah.
And then we hear the words. The camera shoots to the Queen Mother Ramonda. And we hear her say the words, show him who you are.
Yeah.
Did I been dramatic?
Yeah. No, I remember you've been visual
I
actually.
love it.
Yeah.
She says, show him who you are. And something shifts in his demeanor. He becomes upright.
Mm.
Ingati is pulling from something deep within himself.
Oh, yeah.
He responds to that call for him to show ukuthi ubani, ukuthi
Yeah.
ungubani.
Yeah.
He responds, I am T'Challa, son of T'Chaka. And we see something in him get bigger.
Mm.
Physically is smaller, but something of his greatness from deep within himself is unleashed. He goes on to beat Mbaku, and of course he becomes the king of Wakanda. Now it's a movie. But I think it's symbolic and I think it's relevant. Because when we talk to this idea of who you are, it is about drawing from deep within yourself. I don't want it to be philosophical. I always think, how do we learn some of these concepts in a way that people can understand what we're talking about? And so you draw from deep within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You draw from those lessons that you learned because of who raised you.
Yeah.
You draw from those things that used to happen spontaneously that made you feel like, I don't know what it is, but when I dance, I'm on fire.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but when I open my mouth to speak, I'm on fire. So you reconnect with the parts of you where you feel most alive, the parts of you where you most feel like, yes, actually ndimlo. And I don't know how else to describe it except to just put it in that way. So Turning Point enables me to connect with a piece of that. And when I see that, I go, that's what I'm going to go for. You understand?
No, I get it. And it talks to, again, that concept in the work that we do around identity formation, right?
Yes.
Where we have to go back, right? And our identity is not a singular thing. Again, it's multiple identities. But again, it is about, is it coming from that place where that gives us life?
100%.
And not that place that takes away from us. And that becomes a shifting moment, a defining moment in your life.
I also want to talk to the fact that I can seem like Ndimi hero in the story, right? And to some extent I am. But actually, I want to acknowledge the people who are around me at the time. So I'm married to, my husband is gorgeous.
Shout out to Bali.
Shout out to Bahab. So I adore that man. So my husband is gorgeous because here is somebody who is invested in me. All of me, hey? He's invested in me, invested in seeing me grow, invested in me becoming the best version of me, all of these wonderful things.
Never felt intimidated.
And I'm a big presence,
Yeah,
right?
you are on a
Yes.
presence. Yeah.
So my husband, God bless his soul, he really is an amazing human being. And I want to talk about the role he played because he played an important role. So we were having a conversation, and one of the things he said to me as he held up a mirror that I wasn't quite ready to accept was, I feel like you've lost your fire. And so he was also part of assisting me to go. And I remember being kind of like, huh? Utini? And he said, I don't know what it is, but I feel like you've lost your fire. Something of that fire. What's happening? And I think he contributed to me then being resolute to get back that fire. And Turning Point was one of the contributors. He was such a pivotal contributor to my story and my decision to reconnect to that fire. And the final one was I just had my first child. There's something interesting about how when you have a child, it changes how you see yourself in the world. Not just how you see the world, how you see you in the world. And I went from being, and I remember Umdanam came and she had colic for 3 months, which means that she did not sleep for 3 months. She cried for 3 months. Now, our parents are no longer with us, and so there wasn't any support. It was just me and this man trying to figure things out day by day. This child cried for 3 months nonstop. And I remember thinking, like, Senze Ntoni, what did we do to deserve a child who cries like this? And just before the 3 months came to an end, ngibambe umntana akasakhala umntana. Then I was crying. I don't know what to do. And I remember having that conversation with God, going, "Ay, God. Hi, God. Ay. You know? And 2 days later, she stops crying. And after that, I promise you, I was like, I can take on anything. I can take on anything. And so that was also a fundamental shift. I can take on anything. I don't care now about the people at work who said, keep coming to check if you're going to get the promotion. You're going to be caretaking the role and you're doing all the work. And each time you go back, they say, yeah, let's have the conversation 3 months later. I was like, no, I'm done with all of that.
You're so good, but maybe
I'm
not
done.
now. But
No,
not
you're
now.
so good. You know, Zoya, you've got great potential. I was like,
And we
no.
really like you, Zoya.
I was like, this is it. And so you have a baby who's got 3 months, a colic, you are not sleeping, you are wrestling with yourself again. So I think for me, the 3 major events that contributed were that. So let's come back to corporate now. So I step out of corporate, I do this turning point thing.
Yeah.
The second thing I did, and this is also important, is I then decided I want to actually get the power of my voice back. I want to just reconnect to that because you've got to be practical.
Absolutely.
You can't just speak about how I want to change or things must change.
It's not a New Year's
Well,
resolution
an
thing.
insight. I've got so many ahas. That isn't sufficient. You've then got to go, what do I need to practically do for that change to actually come to life? And so I said, in the corporate world, I noticed that people respond in a particular way to people who know how to communicate well.
Yeah.
When people communicate well, when people communicate effectively, when people are clear, all of those wonderful things, they're confident.
Yeah.
We perceive them in a particular way.
As smart. So let's be
We
honest.
perceive them as smart.
Yeah.
We even trust them.
Yeah, we do.
Trust the right?
And that's the bias, though.
Of course.
Yeah.
And so I'd seen it and I said, well, I want to go back to really being able to articulate myself. I want to be confident. I want to be proficient as a communicator.
Yeah.
So I then joined Toastmasters.
Yeah.
And so I sign up to join Toastmasters and, that becomes part of. So the 2 things are turning point and the second is Toastmasters. And I think the combination of those 2 things really become powerful. So in the Toastmasters space now, Brian, what happens is somebody hears me speak and they go, we think you have what it takes to become a Southern African public speaking champion. I look at this man, an elderly white male, a good friend of mine now, and I think to myself, lo baba akazi ukuthi ukhuluma ngani, don't know what he's talking about. Now I'm a corporate dropout.
Yeah.
And he says, no, I think you have what it takes to do this thing. I ask him to give me more information. He says to me, if you win this thing, you get to go overseas. Now, in the sense of humanyana, and I thought to myself, it would make for a good story if I drop out of corporate and then I go overseas.
Of course.
I want people going, hey,
it's an upgrade.
Hey, we're upgrade.
Yeah. Oliver.
So I was like, it would make for a good story. Honest to God, I heard there's an overseas trip and I was like, okay, no, must buy again, And so I entered this competition because there's an overseas trip potentially. I'm not thinking about all of the dynamics related to it. I'm not thinking about, I need to actually do prep work, all of that. Mina, I'm thinking overseas trip for a corporate dropout. And so I enter the competition. Eventually somebody nudges me and says, listen, you've actually got a really good chance at this thing. I heard you speak somewhere. And then I get a mentor and then I get a coach. Now I'm speaking every other day and I'm going to somebody who's coaching me, who's mentoring me. Long and short is I go through the 4 stages of the competition. Round number 5, final one, I win this thing, Brian. And a year later, I'm standing at the world champs representing our country and our continent.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because in 2014, did drop out. In 2015, there's an article in the Star that says Africa's hope at the World Champs of Speaking. And I laughed to myself and I think it's so crazy because how do I become Africa's hope? The same girl who dropped out in 2014. It's wild. It's wild. But it tells you what's possible, ain't it?
Yeah, and let's stay there a little bit because again, it talks to the work that we do again.
Of course.
Here, this coach, this mentor that you had, and this person who is seeing you in the championship, right? Is seeing you, is validating you, right? When we look at that whole scarf model, right? So status is being activated. Do you see?
I do.
Yeah, and you are having a sense of safety. And in your sense of safety, you are unlocking your potential.
Yes.
Talk to that.
Sure. So I love that you're bringing the terminology of our work,
Yeah, the neuroscience.
the neuroscience, etc. Do you
Yeah.
think it's important then for somebody who's listening for us to unpack that? Yeah, we're always teaching. So if somebody hears scarf,
Yeah.
now we have to go. Scarf is a model that effectively talks to the fact that we're social creatures, and
Social
so we're
beings.
social beings, etc.
Yeah.
And so there are these levers, these social levers that
Drive us.
effectively drive us, but that cause your brain to feel like, am I being threatened or am I being rewarded?
Correct.
So for somebody who's like, what is SCARF? SCARF stands for status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, fairness. So if I am somebody who cares for fairness, right, and I experience a situation where things are not fair, then I will activate something in my brain that says I am threatened. Versus I am in a reward space. I always think it's important though for us to break these
I
terms
agree.
down.
And what happens when we go into a threat state? We fight.
In a threat
flee.
state, I pull back.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you the best of me.
Correct. We
100%.
fight, flee, or freeze. But it's not, we don't literally freeze.
Yes.
We just hold our voices. And if it's at
Yes.
work, we checked out.
100%.
Right? And in a relationship, if I'm in that threat state and my fighting would be I'll probably be the negative.
Yes.
Always fighting you, aggressive.
100%.
Or if then I flee, which means I leave you, I dump you, and I ghost you, and I'm gone because you put me in a threat state. Yeah.
100%. So none of us like to be in a threat state because actively what happens then is you disengage, you pull back, and in fact you will do whatever it is you need to do to get back to that place of safety. I will do whatever I need to do to protect or defend myself.
Of course.
So if you think about and his name is Rob Douglas, I think it's important to give people their flowers. So Rob Douglas activates something in me that has me go, wait a minute. He says he sees something in me, right? Yeah. And initially I pull back because I go, ubona ndoni, because remember, I couldn't even see what he was seeing.
Correct.
So it wasn't an immediate, like, oh, yes, he sees. No. I thought Elotata is coming to crowd my life. This man is coming to crowd my life. He doesn't even know my full story.
He wants to use me for BE scores.
All of it,
yeah.
right? And so that's the initial thing. There is an initial threat response.
Of course.
I'm threatened. What does he actually want?
Wow.
All of those things that we typically respond from when we aren't good with ourselves.
Yeah.
And then, he keeps nudging and he points out specific things. He says, I watched you when you delivered that impromptu talk and you were so clear in your thinking and, you were so persuasive and you were able to win the audience over. When he gave me specific things to work with, all of a sudden, I didn't feel like this is someone bullshitting. You understand? This is someone actually who's speaking to an observation that he can point to very factually. And then I said, okay, maybe there's something there. And all of a sudden, I felt good. Now, when you feel that way, then I said, okay, let's go, And he did also promise the overseas trip. So I want to come back so how does this link to the work that we do? So I go overseas, I come back, and it's interesting because now everybody wants you on radio station, on news stations, all of those things. And so what's happening is that something of a profile starts to build.
Absolutely.
And people then call me and they say, listen, we'd love for you to come share your story. And the more I share my story, the more people say to me, look, it's lovely to hear your story, hey, but actually I want you to assist me to know how to do what you do. I didn't think about that. And so fast forward, all these years later, we end up creating programs that then assist people to reclaim and to own the power of their voices. Our tagline, and it's an older tagline because we've since pivoted and we've grown as a business, but our initial tagline was telling stories of hope. That was me when I was a speaker. Then I moved from that and it became a business that assists others to do the same. And we said, discover your voice, share your story. And now we've pivoted to the third one, which is Africa's Empowerment Home. So it really the entire business, I think, was founded initially off of the back of a story of a person who struggled to climb that corporate ladder and who as a result of that lost their voice and who as a result of that found herself wanting to reclaim the power of her voice and eventually assists others to do the same.
I find it very sad how most of us in our walk at some point, we literally take away our power, our voice, and our agency, and we give it to people who don't even give us their power and agency. Very sad. And and we are sitting thinking, bazotini, what are they going to think? But they don't even factor us in their decision making. And yet we are factoring them in our decision making. And
Yeah.
in in some of the work that you're doing and that I'm doing, it's about us reclaiming back our power and taking back that key to our happiness and not giving it away to externals, and realizing that I am my own liberator. I hold the key to my own happiness and not anybody. Even in a relationship, even in a marriage, right? Whilst we might all be together and um, enhance each other's happiness and well being, at the end of all this, I'm still responsible for my own happiness and well being.
Can I latch onto a word you said that I think is important? And the word is responsibility. Because all of us want power, whatever that looks like, right? So the power to wake up and decide what my day must look like. The power to have choice. We don't take that for granted. There are people who wake up and decisions and choices are made for them, right? The power to contribute. Okay, so other people don't feel powerless and feel like they can't contribute. I think we all want it. Where I think we may fall short, and again, I will always point the thing at me first, is I don't know that we're willing to understand that all of that comes with responsibility.
It does.
Siyazifuna man into ezimnandi, you know? But there's huge responsibility associated with that. And so the word responsibility, the ability to respond.
Yeah.
Suhlala phansi usonge izandla. The moment calls for you to actually step in to do something.
Yeah.
And so responsibility is I think a word that when I think about power, I think about the word responsibility. And maybe I'll leave it there.
Yeah. And as we leave there, I would like to already jump into, because beyond the title is also stories around hurt, Zoya, and how we've been hurt or maybe even hurt others. And with every well lived life, there are the lows and the highs. And I would like you to take us through that low in that valley of darkness where you had to struggle with forgiveness and possibly hurt, maybe of self or the other, and how it shaped you.
Hurt.
Pain.
Pain.
Mm.
I'm an Enneagram type 8.
Okay.
That means anything to anyone?
It does.
The Enneagram type 8, and the Enneagram, of course, is a personality profiling assessment. And the Enneagram type 8 is the active controller. And the wound, or, the thing that makes me be an 8 or to be an active controller, is the fact that I struggle with vulnerability. So we're told that the 8 walks the world and they look like they have it all together.
Yeah.
Right? We present in that way. We know how to do that well. But often we use it as a shield for covering up the fact that we're grossly uncomfortable with vulnerability.
So it's a mask.
It's a mask. And so if you strip that away, and this is my constant work, by the way, it is just allowing myself to move into those moments of deep vulnerability where I am seen, not just for the person who has it together, but for the human being too. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, but it feels frightening to me because you and I live in a world where people prey and pounce on our vulnerability.
100%.
And sometimes even our vulnerability is even weaponized.
100%. So, in responding then to your question around the hurt and all of that, I'm acknowledging for myself first and foremost
Yeah.
that this is the kind of work I struggle with for myself, which means that there are things that sit deep down that I now need to bring back up. I don't know what that's going to do in the context of this conversation.
Yeah.
But I feel safe enough on this green couch to allow myself to go there.
Yeah.
Ne?
Take us there, Zoya.
Okay. So, I need to pause and probably drink water.
Mm.
Okay. I hate violence. I hate violence. I hate physical violence. I hate emotional violence. And this is because I grew up around a lot of violence. Whether this was violence within the context of my home, so internally, in what should be a safe space, there was a lot of violence. Then there was the external violence, right? So here we're talking about, remember I said the police constantly coming to our home and then take people away. They would take our nannies away. And so some of the stuff, interestingly, then lodges itself deep inside of ourselves, particularly what we witness. And what we witness with no agency. What does that mean? It means I'm a young kid who witnesses something that I can do nothing about.
And who processes that from an infant's brain.
100%.
Correct. Because the infant brain just processes those things. And to some extent, it cannot make sense and meaning of it.
Yes.
But it also probably lends itself to some conclusions, even about what the
course.
world is
Yes.
and what their place in the world is also.
So the infant or emotional brain processes all of this. And at the level of the emotions, as a young kid, you see this and you kind of go, yo, the world is a violent place then, right? Even if I didn't have the language for it at the time. So I see a lot of violence, man. I see domestic violence or gender-based violence. I see that. I see violence within the context of the community, etc., etc. All of it then causes me to harbor certain thoughts and feelings towards the people who inflict violence on others. I've had to work very hard on my relationship with men, and black men in particular. You'll forgive me. Because who I saw perpetuate that violence on people who were vulnerable, and I'm talking about from a strength point of view, were black males. So a lot of my hurt growing up came from that place. I must be honest. I must be honest around that one. My grandfather was an Anglican archdeacon. And yet, behind closed doors, he was a demon. Yeah, even, eh? And so there was this weird tension between what we presented when we stepped outside the confines of our home, because he was revered in the community. But he was hurtful in the context of our home.
Absolutely.
He inflicted violence, right? And so I observed that. I suspect his children also witnessed that. And as witnesses, sometimes we end up perpetuating the very same thing. Or we end up going, I will choose the opposite of that. I will never be that because I saw that. Or I become that because I've not done the work of healing myself.
Or
Yes.
you have a view of what men are like, especially in the context of the household and in the context of also because of his positionality as a man of the cloth.
Yo, mdasekai.
So it impacts on your relationship with religion,
100%.
organized religion. It impacts even in terms of how you see male authority. It impacts in terms of how you are stepping even into intimate relationships.
100%. So there's all of that. You've got his sons who also demonstrate that. I don't want to speak ill of people because I've never sat down with them to fully understand who they are and where they come from. But I will never forget an example of violence where my uncle held a knife to my mother in that same home, right? And the excuse was, no, he was smoking drugs or something, or marijuana. But I still witnessed that, and I'm young, and I'm going, how does this person hold a knife up to this person? Like, what level of sibling fight leads to a situation where a younger brother would hold a knife up to their older sister? So I witnessed a lot of this violence, and as a result, to your point, I start to form very interesting narratives in my young mind, very impressionable mind, around around black men in particular, and this idea of violence, okay? And positionality, all of it. You have power because you're in a position, and there's the abuse and the use of power. All of those different dynamics, all very important things. And then they contribute, obviously, to who Zoya becomes. Zoya then grows up. Zoya needs to navigate a world where this is not a world of only women, eh? It's a world of men and women and everything in between. And so this is where the forgiveness part comes in. How could I possibly be in a healthy, loving relationship with a man if I hate black men and I'm married to a black man, as you know, right? How could I possibly cultivate something that is healthy, that affirms the best of who that man is, if I carry all of this stuff? And so ukukula is such an important thing. Growing up and coming to build broader perspectives matters. And so I went from this deep-rooted hurt, like I can't explain, around the figure of my grandfather and all of,
The men, yeah.
of the men in my life at the time, to one realizing that, hey, ngabantu nabo, hey, these were people who were also just navigating their struggles in their lives with no language like we have today, with no fancy vocabulary and tools and all of this wonderful stuff that we have that enable us to make sense of the things that happened to us and in our world. And so I became curious about my grandfather's story.
But at some point, you realized that your story had taken over the world.
Whose story?
Your story, their story.
Well, in coming to better understand my grandfather's story, all of a sudden I developed empathy. I went from hating this person to developing an empathy because all of a sudden my understanding of what was driving some of who he became just enabled me to go, this was a human being, just trying to navigate the world in the ways they were able to at that time. There's context, there's circumstance, there's all of these different things.
And the emotions evaporate just like that.
They don't evaporate just like that. It's a work in progress. They didn't just evaporate. It took years for me to be able to humanize this person who I described a little bit earlier as someone who was demonic. I had demonized this person. And so you demonize this person, it doesn't stay there. It carries over into other relationships you have with other males. And so if I demonize this person on the basis of him being a black male, how am I in a relationship that's healthy with another black male? How do I couldn't possibly transfer that from this person to this incredible person that Balikani is. I couldn't.
What helped you drop that burden?
This is so deep. Just say. What helped me drop that burden? I think of the cancer, and I think about of how cancer, once in your system, effectively spreads. I think it just became like a cancer in my system. Akasekho lo muntu kutheni ngoku le cancer izawuhlala phaa kum ngaphakathi? Why does this cancer still need to sit and grow and fester within me? I'm not healthy for carrying that in my own system, in my own world, in my own life. And I think it then connects again to a point you said earlier, where at some point you just grow, man. And you say, there's just things I no longer want to carry anymore. It's sore to carry this thing. It's painful to carry this thing. And when I don't address it, it spills over onto all the other people I meet who are incredible and wonderful and special because I lead from that place. I seek out the demon. I don't give you the chance to show me the best of who you are because I'm filled with this thing inside of myself. So I think I felt a heavy responsibility to myself to say, if I want to be a great, partner, spouse to my husband or even girlfriend, because we dated, obviously, And in fact, a lot of these things used to come up within the context of our dating life, where he'd say to me, "Hey, Sana, you are wonderful, but hey, there's an anger that sometimes comes out that can't make sense. Where does that come from? Like a loathing, right?" And so it would come out while we were dating, and I was like, "Hey, this is pointing me to things I need to actually work on." Because it's not sustainable for building in healthy ways with somebody. And I cared about this human being because they're a great human being with a beautiful heart. Why does our figamna and effectively destroy what is such a healthy, beautiful human being? He's got his own vices, no doubt. But I didn't want to be the person who contributes to bringing out the worst in somebody else. I didn't want to be that.
So in this case, forgiveness for you was then letting go.
Forgiveness was not just letting go, Brian. It was acknowledging that we're human beings. It was acknowledging that sometimes abantu don't even have tools to be able to do this work on themselves. I think sometimes we make it so easy. Go work on yourself. Some people go, "What are you talking about?" And so it was humanizing some of the people I demonized because of the experiences I'd had, first and foremost. And then it was saying, how do I become interested in what shaped who they had become? So I did an extensive project where I went back and I said, I want to understand my grandfather's story. I want to know what happened in his life. I want to know who brought him up and who raised him. And many themes of rejection came up. There were themes of abandonment that came up. And all of a sudden, he went from being a demon to being a human being just like me. And I think that's the place from which my empathy then came. And that hurt was replaced by something so profound, which was an outpouring of love. That's what I think empathy is. It's an outpouring of love because you go, I can move beyond myself and really go, there is another world outside of what I know and my little constraints and my little stories that can actually assist me to better understand the person on the other side. And when I did that, he became human. And maybe to show you the extent of how beautiful it was, this year he turned 100. And because something in me had opened up versus closed up, I was open now. I had this thing that was planted in my spirit to actually acknowledge that. And so I brought the whole family together and I said, can we commemorate his 100th birthday? I would never have done anything like that. And we brought the whole family together and I said, can we use it as a storytelling for us to share about this person and to know their story and to allow it to live into who we are? I said, our children must know who we are and where we come from. And I think marking that 100th birthday was my opportunity to say in practical terms, I have forgiven. I have truly forgiven. And I'm allowing that to make me open. And because of that, something was planted in my spirit to bring the family together and the children together and to say we come from greatness. And I want us to share that. And there has been hurt and there has been pain. But it doesn't take away from the things these people did that have effectively contributed to who I am. And the fact that I can sit on a green couch with you and share a story.
That was Zoya sharing her story of hurt, healing, and her truth. Thank you very much for joining us on this episode. Until next time, keep looking and seeing beyond the titles because we know our stories open hearts, but our titles also open doors. Until then, keep seeing beyond those titles. See you.